Studio A, somewhere inside the great state of Kansas, it's Leadership Late Night Live, brought to you by the Kansas Leadership Center. I'm your favorite music mixer, DJ AJ. Tonight, a discussion about non-profits responding to the needs of the community during a pandemic. And now, your host, by popular demand, me! Hi everyone, welcome back to Leadership Late Night, and I'm your host, Addison Whetter.
You're the host now?
Sorry, Dad, it's kind of a fan thing.
Really?
Yep, we did a lot of research, and turns out reviewership is a lot higher when I'm on camera.
Let me see this. Well, Addison, these are some pretty compelling results, but I am interested who you interviewed to get this information.
Well, I asked Mom, Grandma, Grandpa, Auntie C, Auntie D, and they all said they liked watching the show better when I'm on.
Well, I'm not going to lie, that's going to be a tough segment of the audience for me to ever win. So, can I be your DJ?
Sure, Dad.
All right, I'll be over here. Let me slide behind you. Have a great show.
What do you get when a duck bends over? It's butt clack.
Not bad, not bad.
That's all I got.
Do you want to trade back?
Yeah, you have to have a pretty good audience by now. Don't blow it.
Thanks, DJ AJ. I will try not to ruin this audience you've created. Well, welcome back to Leadership Late Night, folks. And again, the purpose is simple. We're going to show some examples of leadership tonight, have some conversation, and hopefully create a setting where we might have a few laughs. Entertainment options have shifted in the COVID-19 era. Just for example, over the weekend, a major network broadcast NBA basketball players playing an NBA video game. Yeah, not playing basketball, playing the video game. And millions watched on. We can't go to the movie theaters right now. We can only get outside, maybe beyond our house in a few pass. It is hard to find entertainment, stay sane in this social distancing era. And what that's meant for athletes is really ingenious ways of accomplishing big feats. Over the weekend, a marathon runner, James Campbell, completed a marathon in his 20-foot garden. Yeah, in his backyard. Took him over 7,000 laps as thousands of people watched online to see him accomplish the feat. And because of all those viewers, he raised more than $32,000 for coronavirus relief efforts. Simply amazing. He got interviewed by the BBC afterwards, and they suggested that only good old-fashioned British ingenuity and determination would allow someone to accomplish this feat. He quit back and stupidity. James, there's nothing stupid about that. I can tell you what's stupid. I was so hard up for some Italian food over the weekend that I called in an order for my family into a chain restaurant that shall remain unnamed. After waiting in line for more than an hour, I finally got to the front of this establishment where someone came to my car door window and informed me my order didn't exist. After another half hour, I got my order, headed home, and we ate dinner about 9 p.m. The worst part, when I opened the bag, there were no breadsticks. Let me say this, I won't name the establishment, but nobody's going there for the Italian food. We're all there for the breadsticks. And that is how stupid this situation has gotten. All right, time to talk some leadership. I'll hit the desk. DJ AJ, you hit the beats. All right, thank you, Addison. Nice dance moves tonight. And that monologue was a little rough. I had to duck. We lowered the camera there for DJ AJ, and it was not tall enough to handle that monologue. Again, thank you for joining this evening. Welcome back to the desk here at Leadership Late Night. We've got a new segment for you tonight. We're going to get to it in just a moment. But first, I want to set the table for this evening. One, our concept for this evening is simply this. What is it like to be a nonprofit that needs to deliver services to a community during this time of quarantine? So many of the services have always been provided in person, and so it begs the question, what does it mean to do this work right now? We'll do that work with Lori Alvarado of DECA, the CEO, so stay tuned for that conversation, and we're going to try to do it in a way that generates more conversation and questions this evening. So be sending in some ideas, be sending in some notes, some questions you have, And also a note about the after party. If you join us on Zoom, remember right when this show ends, we'll go about 25, maybe 30 minutes tonight. When this show ends, we'll be over on Zoom. My good friend Julian, who's watching on from the Tech Center somewhere in Wichita, will post that Zoom link. We'd love for you to join us. And the idea is that's truly a party. All right, we'll talk leadership a little bit, but we're also going to build some community. Those that join, and I hear that Lori Alvarado will join us as well in that room, we're going to have a fun conversation. My thought here is it's been a long day. It's been a long few weeks. You might be ready to talk to somebody other than your amazing family or your friends in that virtual happy hour. Come connect. We'll have a few laughs. We'll ask some questions, and we'll get out of there in 10, 15, 20 minutes, depending on how long the conversation goes. All right, all that said, the table is set, and I've got a new segment for you tonight. You've already met DJ AJ. You've met my daughter, Addison. I like this to be a family affair. There's no chance I ever get my wife, Lori, on this show. But my son, Parker's a different story. He's not the most talkative guy, and he doesn't always love to jump on these things. But I got him to agree to do a segment for us. So I want to set it up by saying this. We all seem to have these virtual assistants in our house now, all right? Ours we call by the name Alexa, right? You can ask the weather. You can put a shopping list together. You can gather a music playlist, all those fun things. And she's become a real help in our household during this quarantine time to ask for jokes, riddles, favorite songs. But she's also taught us some nice leadership lessons, along with a little help, like I said, from my 6-year-old son, Parker. So without further ado, I bring you to a new segment we're calling Leadership Lessons from a 6-year-old. Enjoy.
No. I don't care.
Leadership Lessons
From a 6-year-old.
sponsored by
Nobody.
This has been Leadership Lessons
From a 6-year-old.
sponsored by
Nobody.
There you go. Leadership lessons from a 6-year-old, giving the work back to his father, who was forced to ask the virtual assistant Alexa for help. I was doing some research on Alexa today. It turns out Alexa got the name because of the X in the name, right? It's just a hard consonant that allows the voice recognition to do better work. So I thought that was interesting. But she is a 5th member of our household right now during this quarantine, and I've just given her a gender identity tonight. So interesting times as we learn lessons of how to give the work back from a 6-year-old. Speaking of giving the work back, I'd like to begin to set up our next segment as we bring on our guest for the evening. Tonight's guest is Lori Alvarado. Lori is the CEO of DECA. It's a nonprofit agency that does work inside of Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, offers so many services. This organization provides substance abuse treatment and prevention, mental health services, child placement services, foster parent recruitment and training, traffic safety education, and youth residential services. And they're all services that still need to exist despite the quarantine that exists in the world today. So the real question that we beg tonight as we bring on Lori is, what does it look like for a nonprofit that relies on in-person experience to provide services during this time? So what I invite you to do is to listen to this interview and start to post some comments about leadership themes you're hearing, what behaviors are being pulled out, or what questions you might have that we could talk about after this interview. So, with that said, I'd like to bring out Lori Alvarado, the CEO of DECA. Lori Alvarado, welcome to the Leadership Library.
Thanks for having me, DJ.
Right? I know, exciting times, exciting times. And the reality is, in these times, conversations like this one, I used to be able to just stop by your office in Lawrence, or we'd set some up and do some in person. Times have changed. Just start there for me.
Oh my goodness, times have changed. We have moved almost all of our services to virtual and have had to try to just learn on the fly, sometimes in the middle of doing a meeting. But just setting up a meeting now, you used to walk downstairs and arrange some tables and chairs. Now you have to learn technology and figure out how to get everybody's mics to work. And if you want to see each other, it takes more time. Maybe because we're learning, right? Maybe it won't take more time in a week or two, but right now it's taking more time. So everything has to be thought of from a technical aspect and an adaptive aspect. And how do you approach each one of those? So we're being more intentional about that.
What does your work look like now that the world is changed because of this pandemic?
Well, it's very, very different. So let's talk about family preservation. We used to go into the homes and provide all kinds of training and supports and connection to resources. Well, now going into the home is more dangerous for everybody. It's dangerous because we could be bringing something in if one of our staff have symptoms that they don't know about yet, or there could be someone ill in the home and then our staff becomes vulnerable to COVID. So we have petitioned the state and received ability to do our services differently. So our staff literally are doing porch meetings. They're doing lawn chair meetings out in the lawn to keep that social distancing 6-foot radius. They are doing more virtual work. So we have had to petition the state and the federal government in certain instances to have permission to do this work differently. So totally adjusting, but you know what? It's working. We're seeing families, we're keeping kids safe, we're still getting those supportive services, just more in a virtual way versus a physical way.
We're really only 3 weeks into the world having just completely, it feels like, changed overnight. What was that work like for you all?
So we came together as an executive team and just started working through everything that we knew would be a regulatory issue. And we petitioned the state. We had a list. So we did the same thing on the substance abuse side. You cannot do telemed on the substance abuse side normally. We are doing it now across the entire state, in Pittsburgh, in Pratt, Wichita, Lawrence, Kansas City. And we're able to bring people together both individually and with the help of Zoom, because it's HIPAA compliant. We're able to do that in group setting as well. What we're finding, DJ, interesting, our group sessions for substance abuse treatment. Normally we have about a 55% no-show rate in person. We now only have virtually a 25% no-show rate. Wow. So actually we are getting more people are getting services virtually than they were in person. Maybe we're learning some things here about how to totally change our service delivery system in the state of Kansas because of COVID.
I'm curious about the why behind that. Why do you think you may be seeing more engagement virtually in these settings?
So childcare is an issue. If you have to leave your house and you have to leave kids alone, you have to find somebody to keep those kids. And sometimes that's a challenge. Sometimes there's not enough money to put gas in the car to go physically to a location. Sometimes just timing. I get off work, I have to get across town to get to my group session, but I actually work a half a mile from my house and I could get online faster. I think all of these things that have been traditional barriers to child welfare work, to substance abuse work, are not as big a barriers if you're doing it online. At least I could have my kids in the same room with me while I'm online. I think we've taken some of the barriers away.
Absolutely. No, that makes a lot of sense. Lori, as executive director in this time, what has that been like, figuring out the balance between providing some authority within the DECA system and also practicing leadership, which I know you really take to heart?
As the authority piece, providing protection, direction, and order, I think it's been imperative that we are very intentional about some of the policies we've suspended and changed. So that's something that I can do. I can provide the authority to say, we're no longer going to do this, or we're going to let folks do this. When it comes to leadership, when I think about the KLC competencies, there's a couple that we have really been hammering on. Holding to purpose. We've not given up on our purpose. Our purpose is to provide those services to the folks that need them the most and to improve lives. And we're still doing that, just in a very, very different way. Strategies totally changed. Purpose, we've held to that purpose. Now, choosing between competing values. That's been the leadership activity of the day around DECA. Do we choose clients over staff? Ooh, that's a very hard value to choose. Do we choose suspending services over continuing to provide them because we know people need them, but we also know it's a danger to continue to provide the services in the way that we were? Those competing values have happened over and over and over again. And then also experimentally, or acting experimentally, right? We're doing virtual treatment, never done it. Our prevention folks totally are revamping face-to-face work and doing it all virtually. They're learning how to do that virtual interactive work that is very hard, and they're learning it in 2 or 3 days. Our prevention folks trained more than 100 people last week virtually by revamping their entire curriculum in less than a week. It's just been this rapid movement, and I talked briefly last week with our executive team. We're observing, we're interpreting, and we're intervening, and then it's right back to observation almost within seconds. It's just moving that quickly. But our leadership development work that we have done with KLC now for and going on 4 years, I think has prepared us to be very nimble. We are moving very quickly. Our employees, at this point, we've not had to furlough or lay anybody off. We've just redesigned that work, and we're learning very, very quickly. And I think without that embedding of leadership development in our agency, we would not be able to respond the way we are and moving forward. We're still making progress on lots of challenging issues. So as weird as it sounds, it's been fun to watch the organization adjust and move very quickly.
Well, you just named it. The purpose of DECA doesn't change despite the times. And you've mentioned some areas of progress, but I'm wondering where you're seeing hope within this system, where you're seeing progress within this system, at any other level you haven't mentioned already.
So as a CEO, I sit back with 75% of our staff working from home, and I ask questions like, how much brick and mortar do we need across the state? I don't know. Coming out of this, do we need as many buildings? We are finding that our families are a little more relaxed in outdoor settings. So maybe we quit going into their living room and talk about how do we sit in the yard and have it be more engaging that way. We're really looking at what does our business design look like? And we may look very, very different coming out of this pandemic. And I think that is exactly what needs to happen. We have done things that we would have never done before. And we never did them before because we were too fearful. And this environment, you can sit in fear, but you don't make progress in fear. So we've pushed through that fear and said, we've got to do it. And maybe we're learning new and different ways to do our work that will actually be more effective.
What's making you laugh even in these tough times?
My family. my teenager makes me laugh. She comes out with jokes and memes and things that just make me giggle. So I find ways to read things that make me laugh. I engage with people that are not work related online that make me laugh. My cousins, my friends. That's what makes me laugh, and I need that to keep my mind fresh for the work that we need to continue to do.
Lori Alvarado, thank you so much for the conversation and for joining us in the Leadership Library.
Thanks, DJ, and thanks to KLC. We are very grateful for the work we've had together. It's really paid off for us, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, I've made it out of the library and back here to the desk, and I'm hoping to get a conversation going on our Facebook live chat. So if you're watching right now live, I'd love for you to throw in some comments. Answer me this. First of all, what's hitting you right now from that conversation that Lori mentioned? And as I think about the dimensions that were brought up, some of the behaviors, choosing among competing values, how about that statement around choosing between staff and those people that DECA serves, right? How do you make choices around that? We didn't get to it much in the interview, but DECA had to make the decision to not continue to accept people coming into their residential setting before Kansas actually asked them to stop that, before other states asked them to stop that. And the thought there was, if there was a COVID-19 outbreak within their facility, then they couldn't serve anybody, including staff getting sick and beyond that. So they made that decision early. So think about the choices among competing values to say, we're going to move virtually, but we also know there's some loss there, right? I think the reality is there's also some loss in what Lori mentioned. Also the piece around acting experimentally, and a theme that's just played out everywhere through the conversations we've had over the last week as we've done 3 of these episodes, holding to purpose. I am continually amazed how organizations are holding to purpose right now, despite the fact that it's very tough to do the work and the strategies as they were originally defined under that purpose. But when we hold to purpose, we call back to that higher level. It's amazing the work that's been able to get done in this time and virtually. And how about that? The numbers, the engagement on certain items actually up, right? Less no-shows to some virtual type settings rather than having to meet and do some group therapy together. Very interesting stuff. I'm also interested in this. Besides what's resonating, I want to know, will this last post-COVID-19? Will the lessons we're learning right now actually last beyond the scope of this pandemic? And I'm interested in that because a couple of our guests have named that they think we're learning lessons that will allow us to move forward. There's also some historical lessons here that suggest once things get better, we'll go back to life as usual. So what's resonating, and do you think we'll actually hold on to these lessons? I'd love to have that conversation before we end tonight. Before we do that, and as I let the comments begin to flow in, I want to remind you of one more thing. If you enjoy stories, if you enjoy hearing from people around the state and in other communities about what progress looks like right now, you have to spend some time at klcjournals.com. Right now, there's a new article up just today about a Lenexa neighborhood becoming a refuge after COVID-19 hits close to home. These chalk drawings that are popping up everywhere, some cool stories in there. And KLC Journals, Chris Green, managing editor, and his staff have really done some amazing work. They had a journal ready to go out, a normal issue based on stories they had reported out for quite a while. And the minute this pandemic hit, they've adjusted, posting new stories all the time. And so I really encourage that you check that out, check out some of the stories, and try to get a part of the conversation going there as well to learn what's going on in so many segments. And that's our klcjournal.com. We also do that in print form, but just amazing stories coming out of them. Kudos to Chris and his team, and I encourage you to take a look at that information and check out more stories about the state of Kansas and the state of really what progress and leadership looks like in this COVID-19 era. That said, let's get the conversation started. I'm going to go over to my second screen here and see what we're learning. Ian Brown is weighing in, and Ian mentions factions, that factions are at play here, that as we look at what DECA has going on, all the organizations they work with, the families, the service providers, all different factions, they had to engage the state. How about petitioning the state of Kansas, saying, we know the laws, the rules, the regulations say we can't do this virtually, but we need to do it virtually. And they were given the ability to do that, and that's something that may last beyond this time. So very interesting. Jeff Mendel weighs in. Some orgs have totally repurposed. Examples, businesses manufacturing masks that have never done so prior, like the My Pillow company. Yeah, I've got the My Pillow upstairs right now. I guess a little bit of free advertising. But the reality is, you're right, Jeff. We're hearing about organizations hold a purpose. We're also seeing some organizations and companies saying a new purpose might be the answer right now. There's more important work that needs to be done. So I think that's an important thing. Roger weighs in and says, our work and education environment may very well look different after this is over. And Amy weighs into Jeff. One interpretation is there might be a deeper purpose with these companies rather than merely the products they produce. That actually this time is pulling out deeper purposes and a connection to deeper things. Ashley from the KLC staff. Ashley, thanks for watching tonight. It will be interesting to see how organizations adjust down the road. Will they go back to normal or learn valuable lessons and improve the new normal? And that's my big question is I'd love to think we'll be different after this. I think it will take an act of leadership. It will take real conversations, people pushing back against the system when the real easy thing to do will just be to say, we're back to normal. Let's go back to doing what we're doing. We're enjoying in my house being home every night of the week. No activities, no sports, no dance class, all those things. I know my kids miss it, and yet what have we learned during this time that will allow us to maybe add some balance to that? Lori and I, my wife Lori, always said one activity per kid at a time. That ended when Addison turned 6 and Parker turned 4. It's amazing how quick those things go out the window. Will we learn from that? I hope so. Some guy named David Whetter, that's my father, said he's wondering about Lori's comment, will we all need brick and mortar in the future? Yeah, this idea of brick and mortar. I do some work within faith communities, and we're seeing that question of, is a church, is a synagogue, is a mosque the building, or is it about the people? Some of these virtual worships are drawing in people from around the nation, around the world who used to be connected to churches, and they're having a different experience. So many questions of what will brick and mortar mean down the road. I'm loving this conversation, and I think that we're learning so much of it. And I want to end with this comment from Kelly Garcia. The culture of experimentation before the crisis is key. That nimbleness to adapt in a crisis isn't as foreign. So organizations that are practicing acting experimentally, maybe a theme here, right? And that were nimble before this crisis, we're able to jump into this crisis and say, we're ready for this work. We know what it looks like to be flexible, to try new things. And I think we heard that from Lori in the interview tonight. And I know that she mentions their leadership work, and this is their work in partnership with KLC, but I'm not giving KLC the credit here. This is amazing work by DECA to just be ready to act experimentally and try new things. Well, I think that'll do it tonight for Leadership Late Night. I hope that you enjoyed connecting in. Remember, the party continues on Zoom. I'm going to grab a glass. I'm going to put a little bit of liquid in it. It's going to look like apple juice. Only I will know whether it's apple juice or not. But I hope you'll join us on Zoom for some conversations. I hope Lori Alvarado will join us on there. We'll talk a little bit about the themes that played out tonight. We'll share some stories, hopefully a couple laughs, and we'll get everybody to bed. Speaking of bedtime, it is my daughter's bedtime. DJ AJ needs to hit the sack. I hope that all of you have a wonderful evening. And that said, good night, and especially to DJ AJ, good night.
Good night, Dad. I'm heading to bed, but you should go to Dad's after party on Zoom. And now, your moments of hope.
It's 6 feet apart. He got you.